Joint Customs Consultative Committee, the JCCC, and there are various subgroups underneath that. And then there's Customs Transformation, which is sort of in parallel to the JCCC, and that runs things like CDS, basically. So the main Joint Customs Consultative Committee meets 3 times a year, and to be honest, isn't a big player in this Brexit arrangement. So it mainly updates the trade bodies that are members of it. Underneath that, there's the Products and Processes subgroup, which meets I think probably 4 times a year, or it tries to meet 4 times a year. And that looks after specific customs regimes and such like. Again, because of COVID, I think there hasn't been that many face-to-face meetings, well, no face-to-face meetings, and as such, it hasn't got particularly involved in any of the new systems. You've then got what was the Brexit subgroup and is now the transition, the JCCC transition subgroup, and that meets fortnightly. And again, it kind of it tries to get involved in some of the operational things. So it mainly is it takes questions. At the moment, we're working on every 2 questions we ask, well, we get 1 answer and we ask 2 more questions. So we're still going around that sort of ratio. So that meets fortnightly and gives an update on what's what. Now the other aspect of the engagement with HMRC is from the CDS program. Now, as you might remember, CDS was supposed to be live and Chief was supposed to be turned off in September. Well, this month, in fact, September this year, they were going to turn Chief off. It took quite a bit of effort actually to get everybody finally to own up to their genuine state of readiness, and eventually we got the CSPs and the software houses all together on HMRC, and we sort of we worked out that between us that there was no chance of achieving September this year, and September 2021 was a realistic target, but even that would be challenging. Now they never quite made that announcement officially. They announced that Chief would continue to run past 2021, but they never specifically said what the dates of CDS would be. But basically, everyone, including us, was aiming to have CDS sort of up and running and available from the middle and towards the third quarter of next year. Oh, by the way, if anyone wants to ask any questions, can you use the hand up icon on the bar, and Sharon will keep an eye on it and take your questions. I'll take them as I go. I don't wait till the end. If I say anything that generates a thought from you guys, just stick your hand up and we'll take it as we go. So CDS, it was quite good. The program actually came to an end officially. The CDS program has been completed. The product has been delivered according to HMRC. They've delivered what they consider to be the minimum viable product. That may be minimum, and it may be viable for HMRC's point of view, but it wasn't particularly viable for the wider trade. So CDS Phase 2 has started, and that is involved. They have a CDS Northern Ireland program board now, and currently they have a red, amber, green status on it. So the HMRC part is green because I think they're chucking resource at it, and they will undoubtedly, I think they're more likely than not to have their bit finished. Quite how end to end it will be remains a question, and the external trade readiness part of the program is solid red at the moment. They don't really think a lot of the trade will be ready. With regard to Northern Ireland, there are a number of subgroups and committees for Northern Ireland. Now, I'm on 2 of them. There are at least another 2. These are HMRC. The Border Systems and Protocol design people, which used to be the Border Systems Programme. Now, they no longer work within HMRC. They've been moved to the Cabinet Office. So, and a lot of the things that are going on now reflect a culture of control from the centre. HMRC have really been sort of sidelined, and all the decisions being made from central government, which isn't necessarily a good thing. So with regard to Northern Ireland, the engagement is very siloed. Both HMRC and it transpires the border programs say, well, we've spoken to the aviation sector, which comprises of the airports and the airlines. Now, it doesn't include the CSPs who provide the inventory. It doesn't include the transit sheds, and it doesn't include any of the forwarders that actually do the work and understand how it works. So at the moment, the engagement from HMRC and the border people has been very much down sort of siloed, areas of trade that they consider they need to talk to. So they're having discussions with hauliers, with ports, with ferry companies, but none of it's being brought together. We've said that they need to do this. They need to look at how stuff actually moves, how it really works in the real world, because a lot of this is theoretical. So through the CDS program, they are trying to, because they have a couple of subgroups, and they're trying to get all the people that are involved in an end-to-end journey. So that would include, forwarders, hauliers, port operators, ferry companies, perhaps, to understand, what each party does. And we've been suggesting that now for about 3 or 4 weeks. And everyone said, yeah, that's a really good idea. We need to do that. But so far, nothing's happened. So we're still on the silos. Now, with the issue, I think, that has complicated Northern Ireland to some extent is this trader support service. Now, the government, in its wisdom, decided that the intermediary sector was not sufficient in Northern Ireland to cope with what they anticipate to be about 12 million entries a year for Northern Ireland. These are goods that come from Great Britain to Northern Ireland, and if you look at the Northern Ireland Protocol, there's nothing in there that says you have to do a customs entry from GB to Northern Ireland, but somebody in the government decided that would be the best way to do it. So every shipment that comes from GB into Northern Ireland has to be entered to customs. Now, the mechanism that HMRC have decided, despite the fact that it's not ready, is CDS. And they've decided that they're going to have to use CDS because it's Union Customs compliant, and it also runs a dual tariff. So there will be a list of products, and it hasn't been published yet, that the EU will be concerned about moving through Northern Ireland into the single market. And obviously the European Union wants to protect the single market, so they will identify a number of commodities that they feel that they want to keep an eye on and make sure they don't move. So if you import those goods into Northern Ireland, you will have to pay duty at the external rate of the EU tariff. So you'll find the UK customs tariff, which, by the way, still hasn't been fully published, but be that as it may. So the UK will have its own customs tariff and its own rate of duty, and the EU will have its tariff, which is the one we currently use. And there may be some significant differences in duty rates on some products. So in order to stop those products moving, moving south, you've got to enter them into CDS and pay the European rate of duty. Now you pay the duty to the UK government, not to the European Union. If you're a Northern Ireland business that is importing that type of commodity, and you can prove that it's not going to go anywhere else other than Northern Ireland, so it's for domestic consumption, you can apply for some sort of subsidy, and they effectively pay you back the duty you've paid. I mean, why we've decided to control 100% of goods when actually we're only interested in 3 or 4% of stuff, I have no idea. But that's the theory at the moment. So the government decided that there's not enough intermediary capacity to deal with all these entries, and they decided that they would commission a company or a number of companies to provide a service for Northern Ireland businesses. Now it's called the Trader Support Service, TSS. And what that is it's supposed to be an end-to-end digital service, whatever that means. And it has a number of functions. The first one is to improve the knowledge of the Northern Ireland businesses as to what they're supposed to do with regard to customs entries. The second thing it does is it will act as an indirect representative and will actually do the brokerage, do the customs entries on behalf of these businesses that want to use it. Now that's going to be a free service to everyone to access, and they intend to run it for a period of 2 years, at which point they hope that the private sector will take it over again. There's a number of things it's supposed to do as well, which seems kind of difficult, and again I'd kind of welcome some input from you guys in this. One of the things is it's supposed to improve and increase the intermediary capability, so it has to interact with intermediaries and the CSPs and the port operators and the like. It's kind of difficult to see how it's going to do that, because there are concerns that this service may be provided by what is one of your competitors. So people have a nervousness about giving the data to whoever wins the bid. There's issues with state aid and restriction of trade and all sorts of things. So various trade bodies are making various noises about taking it to court and seeing whether it is actually legal. But at the moment, the bid process finished yesterday, 31st of August, and all the bids were in. HMRC are now sifting through them and deciding who they'll appoint to be the provider of this service, and they intend to release the results and announce the winner on the 4th of September. This is a system that they reckon will be up and running by the end of this year. How they intend to do that, I have no idea. So in terms of what feedback have we had so far from Northern Ireland, it's kind of mixed. We've spoken to a small number of our customers out there, and we've spoken to some traders, and I think the people that understand how things work are saying, well, I'm not sure I'm going to use that. I don't trust it. I don't think it'll be any good. I'll do it myself. And other people are thinking, oh, this is handy. Free brokerage, all the problem just goes away, and happy days. So what the object of the exercise today is to try and work out what you, as our customers, are looking for us to provide to you. Now, we've taken a view that we really don't want to deliver a CDS product that is less than perfect. And at the moment, it is less than perfect. If you take the CSPs, I think one of the CSPs has got their inventory linked imports working reasonably. I think if you take CCS UK, they don't have inventory linked imports working currently, and they're even further behind on export dual running. The way CDS is going to be phased in on exports is it's gonna run in parallel with Chief. So if you put an entry into CDS or Chief, and then transit shed or report arrives, the consignment on CDS or Chief, the two systems talk to each other and give you back a response. That sounds relatively straightforward, but it is, reasonably technically challenging, and there have been a number of issues with regards to the responses it gives. So it's not a system that is robust, to put it mildly. So that's, I think, the overview of where we're at technically and sort of operationally. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions at that point.
Just a comment there from Ray Bergen. He saw a post a while ago that customs would keep Chief for GB to NI traffic, keep CDS for EU stuff. Do you know anything about that? Have you heard anything to that effect?
No. So the question I keep asking is, what about contingency? What happens on the 1st of January if we've tried to get all this stuff ready and we haven't? And that's likely to be the case. I just cannot see that everybody 100% will be ready and doing this. So what happens? Do we just turn around to the EU and say, oh, sorry about that, we did our best, but you know what, it was kind of tricky, and we haven't quite managed it. So what happens? We've suggested, especially on exports, that we can't see any reason why there's a requirement to use CDS for exports from Northern Ireland. But again, there's been no comment from HMRC. Nothing has changed. There's a lot of things that, as I said earlier, we're asking 2 questions for every 1 answer. And there's a lot of things at the moment that they have taken away and will come back to us. Sorry, Sharon, did you?
Yeah, Phil Challoner has a question.
Yeah, I may have misunderstood what was said there, but are we saying that all product destined for the Republic of Ireland going in via NI will be declared only through CDS?
Okay, so all products into Northern Ireland have to be, at the moment, the system is they will be entered on CDS. If goods are ultimately destined for the Republic and are going in through Northern Ireland, they would have to be in transit through Northern Ireland into the south.
And then a secondary declaration at a notional border.
Well, there is no border between Southern Ireland and Northern Ireland, as you know, and how you'll discharge transit is a matter of ongoing discussion. They haven't worked it out yet. I mean, the likely it is if you're moving goods in transit into Southern Ireland, they'll be going to a temporary storage location around Dublin or somewhere in the south. So they will be genuine. You know, if they come from the UK or from GB, they will be genuinely third country goods. So you'll have to enter them on the Irish system.
Okay. And is there any talk of known or authorised consigners for discharge of T1s? That I guess there would be. Probably a silly question.
No, it's not a silly question, actually. I mean, there's not enough talk, in my view. I think, you know, as forwarders, I think if you're looking at how are you going to do all this, well, do you know what? I think the thing you need to do is avoid the actual port, you know, the ferry port, the arrival port, the ro-ro port. Try and streamline that process as much as possible, minimize your engagement with that location, and move the goods probably in transit into a temporary storage location where you probably would be advised to register as an authorised consignee and consignor.
And will that affect the concept of both MRNs being available at the point of export?
Say that again.
So when we've been through many rounds now where we've almost had Brexit, and there was talk of anything going to the EU would require your export MRN and your import MRN to get into the port to allow getting on the ferry.
Right. So yeah, that's still in play. So if the the model that the UK using for inbound traffic is the same as most European countries are using for their inbound traffic, which is the pre-entry, either the pre-entry model or temporary storage. So I can't see temporary storage is going to be particularly popular for ro-ro, but it would apply for transit, goods in transit. So you'll have a transit MRN, and that will be the only difference between the CTC and the old NCTS, which we currently use, is they've introduced this concept of Office of Arrival. Now, when we were talking about you know, day one no deal last October, the way they were going to deal with transit shipments and discharge the Office of Arrival responsibility was to give the Border Force, they'd allocated 1,200 Border Force staff with iPhones, and they were going to scan the transit barcodes on the ferry on the way in and out. Now, it's unclear as to whether they're going to do that now, either as contingency or as a service, and they're saying that the GVMS, the goods vehicle management system, is going to be a digital office of transit. But of course, you've got to connect to GVMS. So that has some challenges of its own.
Could you talk a little bit more about that, Pete, when you say a digital office of transit? What would that?
Okay, so the GVMS, the Goods Vehicle Management System, that's a system that the government have dreamt up, but basically what it is, the haulier has to give the Goods Vehicle Management System a movement reference number that covers the entire content of his truck. So they allocate one reference for the truck, and he has to also give the vehicle registration number or the trailer registration number. Now, underneath that movement reference number, there will be various MRNs or entry references They can either be chief entries, not for Northern Ireland maybe, but for the rest of Europe, they could be chief entries, they could be CDS entries, or they could be transit. And basically, when the vehicle arrives at the ferry port has to check that it's got an MRN and it's valid, and underneath that I'm unclear as to how they're going to do this, but they have to make sure that all of the goods or all of the MRNs under the movement reference number are valid, and there's no problems with it, and then they can let the vehicle on the boat. Also, by the way, you've got to do a safety and security declaration, and you've got to put the MRN for that as well. So there'll be, effectively 2 references for each shipment you've got on the truck. Now, when bow's up, the system knows that the lorry is on the ferry. It knows what shipments the lorry has got on it, and it then goes through the risking process. So as part of that process, it can fulfill the office of arrival function or the office of departure, because it knows what goods are where. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm glad of that.
Nikki Sayer has a question, Peter. Next, if you've finished answering that one.
I think so.
Yeah. So Nikki.
I think you're on mute, Nikki. Still on mute.
Well, Mark's got a question. Maybe if we move to Mark to Brett, we can go back to Nikki when we. Mark, go ahead.
Mark.
Yeah, I have unmuted. Hopefully just not quite as so software orientated, but we have a number of customers registered in the GB, companies registered in England and Wales, who currently ship either from third countries or from the EU direct to Belfast, and where relevant, customs clearance takes place at Belfast Port using the GB EORI number. What will happen then in that instance? Will that still be acceptable as a customs entry from outside?
No, goods from the European Union, if they travel direct into Belfast, are effectively C status goods. So they'll move without customs. I mean, it's bizarre when you think about it. So any goods that come from other European member states have free access through Belfast into Northern Ireland. They don't need customs clearance, and I think it's CNS that run the inventory at Belfast Port, so they're going to have to work out a way that they can release the cargo. There's a slight complication if it comes via the UK, or if it comes via GB as a land bridge, or if it goes via the Republic, it would have to be in transit. And again, we don't know how you discharge that transit in Belfast without doing a customs entry.
Mm.
So it's one of these things that currently HMRC are mulling over.
Right. What about third-party entries then? Would our customer have to register themselves as a company in Northern Ireland?
I don't think so. As long as they've got a UK EORI number, I think they're good to go.
Right.
There's a number of discussions going on, probably not within the customs arena, more within the foodstuff industries, as to because one of the things with the Northern Ireland Protocol is this unfettered access from Northern Ireland to GB. Well, some Northern Irish businesses are concerned that that will devalue Northern Ireland product because they feel that people will use that route to sort of smuggle goods. So at the moment, there's a discussion going on as to what is the definition of a Northern Ireland business, and what is the definition of Northern Ireland goods, and that's still being discussed at the moment. So we don't know how that's going to turn out.
Right, thank you.
Okay, Glenn.
Yeah, hi Pete. Did I just
Hi,
hear
Glenn.
you right? Hello. Did I hear you right there? You're saying that goods moving from, let's say, it moves out of France, Belgium, Germany, travelling directly into Belfast port, will be treated as if it's going to Southern Ireland, like as part of the EU. You said no customs clearance at Belfast for goods coming from Germany.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds a phenomenal political potato, really. So you're basically saying that Northern Ireland, you're now actually saying the island of Ireland is a member of the EU. Is that, I heard that right?
Well, for customs purposes, yeah. I mean, I can't believe that all of this stuff actually has been sort of received with the equanimity that it has been.
I don't think it's clear. I don't think people realise it's these things are only coming to light now, so I don't think people are aware. That's the problem.
Yeah, that just seems phenomenal.
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? Here we have, we have CDS, Union Customs UCC compliant. We're not in the EU from January, so why do we have to use that? And how on earth do we have the situation where it's legally required to make a customs entry which is Union Customs Code compliant from one part of the UK to another? I mean, you couldn't make it up, really, but that's at the moment, that's the situation where we're facing now. All of this, by the way, could change. It could vary depending on what, or if there's an agreement between the EU and the UK. Not so much from the free trade point of view, that's almost a red herring, but these discussions about the Northern Ireland Protocol are ongoing between the EU and the UK government.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Phil, you've got another question?
I do, yeah. It's one of our customers has decided to use the north as its route to the Republic, to the tune of around 15 to 20 full vehicles a day, with many hundreds of SKUs on there, of which part will be vet controlled and some will be phyto controlled. All those moving with a T1, will they be checked on arrival in the north, or again some notional discharge or checking on arrival into the Republic?
That's a very easy question, and because I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't know that. We'll take that one away, because the island of Ireland is a single epidemiological unit, apparently. They're going to increase the facilities at Larne, I believe. But those goods would inevitably have to be in transit. So whether there'll be an agreement that they get checked at the first point of arrival, which will be in Northern Ireland, I don't know. I suppose I don't know whether there's a mutual recognition has been agreed between the North and the South on that type of product, on the SPS checks.
And this particular customer moves a fair amount of duty suspended, or what used to be duty suspended products, heading for the Republic through that same corridor. Do you see any comments on that, or any thoughts?
This is a real sort of hot potato politically, and the foodstuff and the agri-food trade bodies in Northern Ireland are very active about this, and they're quite keen for the checks to be sort of carried out by by the normal processes that are in place in the supply chain, because these are products that are very heavily regulated anyway. They're always checked. They can track, if it's beef, for instance, they can track the animal from birth to death. They ear tag them, and they know where the thing is at every point of its journey. So they're quite keen to have things like trusted trader, maybe even trusted routes, because I think at the moment there's with livestock you're supposed to stick to certain routes by truck. But I think this is a situation that's got some mileage in it yet. It hasn't been finally decided how it's going to work.
Okay, thanks.
Pete, if I just switch to the meeting chat, there's quite a few questions on there. Simon Southall's asking, what are the expectations for goods exported from GB to NI and then moved south and vice versa? Goods exported from GB to NI and then moved to the Republic.
So I guess you've got two choices. You could either, if you know they're going to move immediately, you could probably do a transshipment when they come into Northern Ireland. Otherwise, you would have to pay. So if you import them and actually do a customs clearance when they arrive in Northern Ireland, you would have to pay the duty at the EU tariff rate, and then those goods are free to move north to south without any further customs activity. So there'll be no customs entries from goods in free circulation within the island of Ireland. Does that answer the question?
What about the other? What about vice versa? What about goods coming from the Republic into Northern Ireland, ending up in GB?
This again is the unfettered access concern. So goods travel from the Republic of Ireland into Northern Ireland with no checks, no customs, no nothing. If they move to GB, they should theoretically be identified as EU goods, not Northern Ireland goods, and they should be subject to a customs entry when they arrive in GB. Now, if anyone can work out how that is controlled, good luck to them. And that's what the concern is about the unfettered access, because it's difficult to see how you can really work out the origin of the goods.
So you wouldn't use community transit?
Well, you should do, but I mean, the smuggling industry in Northern Ireland in Ireland is extremely efficient and well established, and there's a concern that goods from the south will just be declared as Northern Ireland goods and move freely into the UK.
The Irish Revenue have got a presentation which discusses what happens in certain situations. That's quite informative. It's all still subject to discussion, but it is quite informative of what they expect. So we could say that, I guess.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I've got that. That's the one I sent you, Simon. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I could circulate that then today if anyone wants that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like all these things. If everybody plays by the rules, fine, it can work. But you've got to look at the nature of the business and the nature of the market in Ireland. You're talking about a country that currently is running about an £80 million deficit in excise because of fuel smuggling. The most likely thing that's going to happen is more commodities will join the smuggled goods list as well as fuel. But that, I guess, isn't our problem, really.
No, and that shouldn't prevent the legitimate business knowing the rules and understanding them so that they
Yes.
can adhere to them.
Yeah.
I guess. Ray is asking any indications or concerns regarding all of these systems talking to each other and the systems coping with the ultimate surge of usage when everybody joins?
No, we've got what is it, 3 or 4 brand new systems that haven't been built yet. All need to be up and running by the end of the year now. No problem at all. Can't see any issues.
Banzai.
It's the worry is, even if you talk about these systems in isolation. I mean, you've been to some of the meetings, the more technical meetings on GVMS, Simon, and the reality is, just on the simple journey, they don't fully understand how it works. And when people start saying, well, what about this? What about that? What about the other? They go, oh, yeah. So I can't see. I think from the government point of view, they will have these systems in place by the end of the year because they will just throw money at it. So the GVMS will be there, Smart Freight will be there, whatever else they've got in the pipeline will all be there. Now, how many of the trade can connect to it and whether it will do the job that is genuinely needed to be done, I think is very doubtful. And I can't see. I think it will be a challenge to get this all up and running and working by July next year, when the full system of checks come in for EU goods. I think it will be a big challenge to get it working for then. I really can't see it working in January.
Just going back to your previous answer to the other colleague, Peter, regarding basically smuggling of goods, it's going to make it quite a challenge for those that want to be compliant in everything that they do to actually utilize any special programs or any customs regimes, because you're not going to be able to have full traceability of those goods.
No, absolutely. I mean, it makes it much harder to do it properly than it would be to just ignore it. And as we know from experience, people do what's easiest, and that's a big concern for the Northern Irish trade bodies. They're really concerned about the integrity of the Northern Ireland product being destroyed. Because Northern Ireland foodstuff, the red tractor, carries a price premium. It's more expensive. Northern Irish beef is £2 a kilo dearer than Irish beef. So you can see the temptation is there to declare everything as free circulation or Northern Ireland origin, and it's a big concern. How are we doing, Sharon?
Yeah, sorry, Pete. Andy Quincy's asking, okay, so we understand there are no tariffs on goods from GB to NI apart from those that are at risk, but how do we identify goods that are at risk or high risk?
Yeah, there'll be a list published eventually. At the moment, again, that's still a subject of discussion between the UK government and the EU.
Okay. Nick Foden-Ellis, transport domestic pets, but they're not commercial goods, although they are commercial carriers. So will they have to do entries for domestic pets if they're a commercial carrier?
It's not my area of expertise. I guess the pet would have to be. Do they go in through Larne?
No, if we're going into the province, then we usually go in through Belfast on the ferry.
Do they need a vet check currently?
Currently not. So pets going into Northern Ireland obviously don't need anything right now. Pets going into the EU, because our restrictions or regulations are that little bit tighter than the EU's currently, there are no checks going into the EU. The talk post-Brexit is, and it's obviously a negotiation stance, is that the EU will no longer recognise our rabies-free status, so we will need a health certificate.
Again, we'll have to take that one away. I have seen that question asked in another forum actually, and I can't recollect an answer, but we'll have to ask. Again, I guess, as you said, it's a negotiating stance of the EU, and at the moment, I think those things are still up for discussion. So we'll keep an eye on that one and add it to our extensive list of questions about how do you do whatever into Ireland.
Yeah, I mean, people have always used the Republic as a easy way into the UK. Back in the day when we had quarantine, I know lots of people, particularly British Army serving in Germany, rather than put pets into quarantine, coming straight back into the UK, they would get ferries from France into the Republic, drive north and across into either Liverpool or Scotland. So, it's a well-trodden path, and I appreciate it's not sort of relevant for the vast majority of people on the call, but we've got to get an answer. But thanks, Pete.
Yeah.
Okay. Nikki's asking, will we be able to use CFSP into Northern Ireland?
Yeah, don't see why not. Simon, I'm looking at you.
As far as I know, yes.
That's
the information so far.
Yeah, because you're a GB EORI registered company, so
well, I've got some stuff that I'm looking at from the ECCG, talking about what systems need to change prior to 1st of January, and that is changing EORI numbers for Northern Ireland, because from an EU point of view, they're going to have Northern Ireland country code as XI and GB as XU, and they're talking about changing EORI numbers. I don't know whether that means internally or whether they will actually need to be changed. Any NI registered EORI numbers. So there's some issues around that as well. Again, unsure.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to see how you can be effectively in two customs territories, because although Northern Ireland is still part of the UK customs territory, it's following the UCC rules and regulations, and quite how that works seamlessly, I have no idea. And again, what legal basis underpins it? Because when you ask the question that, because this came up last year sometime on a British overseas territory. So the question was asked then: if you're moving goods from a British overseas territory back into GB, and goods don't incur duty, is there a legal basis that you have to make a customs entry? So we asked the question on the back of Northern Ireland. Well, what legal basis do you have to enforce the customs entry between one part of the UK and the other? And the answer was that the law will be in place by the end of the year. So at the moment, there's no legal basis for any of this, but they tell us that it will be in place by the end of the year, and it will be legal. So how that's going to happen, I have no idea.
GVMS questions then. Andrew Vincent's asking, well, GVMS was the original one-size-fits-all model. What's happened to this? Has it died in favour of TSS? And also, is there still going to need to be ENS into NI?
Yes. Okay. So from the back working forwards, yeah, there needs to be an ENS into the UK, so the Northern Ireland ICS system, and that will be enforced for the 1st of January. There's no 6 months holiday in that. What's the other part, Sharon? Sorry, I've distracted myself.
Has GVMS died in favour of TSS?
No. So part of the remit for GVMS is they will support GB companies that ship goods to Northern Ireland. So the implication being that they will assist people to utilise GVMS. I mean, I haven't spoken. The problem with lockdown and having these meetings on Teams is you don't talk to anybody else. So I currently have no idea what the port operators, the Ro-Ro port operators, what their view is on GVMS. You know, what they feel about having to check that the lorry has customs entries and all this stuff. I don't know what their view is. They may be happy to do it, or they may be turning around and saying, well, we're not going to do that. It's not our job. So I think all these things are, you know, have some distance to go yet before it's fully clear what how it's going to work and what's going to happen.
Well, Simon Southall's asking, will GVMS apply to Northern Ireland import and export?
Yes, when necessary. If goods need demonstrations from NI to GB, then GVMS will apply.
Yeah, it's one of these statements that that I love. It's a sort of throwaway comment. There's a small number of goods will need an entry from Northern Ireland to GB. Again, that list, I don't think that list hasn't been published, Simon, has it? As far as I know.
Don't think so, no.
Okay, well, Simon, another question from Simon. Will a TSF in the Republic with authorised consignee status be allowed to complete the TAD and clearance if the goods are entered via Belfast?
That's a good one. I guess it depends on the status of who controls the goods. If they're based in Northern Ireland, they presumably can use TSS. I think if they're based in the Republic, I wouldn't think so. Does that answer the question?
Simon, are you there?
I'm here. I'm just trying to find the.
Sorry, it was Simon Southall who asked the question. I was wondering if that answered it. So was that Simon I was looking for? Sorry.
Yeah, it sort of answered the question. Not sure if you can hear me.
Yes, yeah, we can hear you.
Right. Yeah, so we've got a TSF which is in Ashbourne. So if we've got any goods that are coming in from GB through Belfast, I'm assuming we're going to be expected to do the customs clearance at Belfast and then be able to transit down to Ashbourne if we were to go that route, if we couldn't get it through Dublin, for example.
Yeah, so if the goods are customs cleared, so effectively they're in free circulation in Northern Ireland, you can move them freely backwards and forwards between Northern Ireland and the Republic. If you don't want to customs clear them in Belfast, you would have to move them in transit. So you could either start the transit, I guess, in Belfast, or you could have a transit movement from origin, transiting through Northern Ireland, going to an approved location in Southern Ireland.
Okay, great.
But again, we haven't seen how the because you know this is not really traditional use of transit, so we don't know yet the final details or the fine detail of how transit's actually going to be started and finished.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Liam McGuinness, I have shipments that are sent UK to Northern Ireland for deliveries, and move on to the Republic to complete the deliveries there, and then back north into Northern Ireland to complete the last of the deliveries. What would we need to do?
Oh, sorry about that. It was long-winded, wasn't it? No coffee.
Well, I guess basically, I suppose if you've got a trailer with a mixed load on it, if it's coming into Northern Ireland, it's difficult to see that to do it any other way than have a temporary storage facility in Northern Ireland and split the Republic stuff away from the Northern Ireland goods. Otherwise, if you're moving uncleared goods across the north-south border, which isn't there, of course, you would have to use transit. But you
can clear them all in Northern Ireland and then just move the Republic stuff freely across.
Yes,
question. Yeah.
It's the Northern Ireland, then the Republic, then back to Northern Ireland again. That's sort of giving me the issue.
Yeah, just the way the schedule works.
Yeah. That's the problem. It makes commercial sense and it makes logistical sense, but the customs just aren't focused on that aspect of it. They have no understanding. And at the moment, I think it's fair to say they have no interest at all in how business works and the impact of some of this stuff. They're purely focused on what they think the law requires them to do. And business, frankly, can get on with it.
Okay, cheers, Peter.
So just to clarify for Phil, a safety and security declaration is required from Northern Ireland to GB despite unfettered access.
No, only I don't even think on the controlled goods.
From NI to GB, this is now.
Yeah, no, there's no safety and security requirement.
No,
only the other way.
Yeah, if you've got goods that need a customs entry, I don't know whether they would have to have safety and security.
Not this week, I don't think, but it might change.
Yeah, because if you're doing an export entry, of course, that incorporates the EXS. I can't see that would. Again, we'll have to clarify that, but at the moment, as we understand it, there is no safety and security requirement from Northern Ireland into GB.
So Ray's asking, if GB to NI goods need to be exported, then we assume that any controlled goods and technology will need an export license. Again, the same might apply for send or control technology electronically, digitally. Is that?
Yeah,
is that right?
I think that's right. As we understand it at the moment, quite how they'll control controlled goods, it isn't clear, but they have said that controlled goods will need to be controlled from Northern Ireland into GB.
Okay. Comment from Paul Wisdom. In its broadest interpretation, seems that the NI situation is a fig leaf, so to speak, for the EU. Neither the UK nor the Irish governments particularly want it, and ultimately the process will be as protracted as the EU wants to make it. Therefore, it makes sense to push the entire process to be as simple as possible. Something as easy or something like an intrastat declaration?
Yes, I quite agree. We've suggested they have, especially as you've got to continue to do intrastats anyway. We've suggested that. The Northern Ireland Food and Drink Federation, for instance, has suggested that when you've got goods that are at risk of moving to the south, that it's dealt with in the same way as VAT. So the company in Northern Ireland that is selling the goods, if that company sells those goods into Northern Ireland, it charges duty at the UK rate on its commercial invoice, and if it sells them to people in companies in the Republic, They charge duty and, you know, at the EU rates. But again, all of these things which are suggested by the government, and there's been quite some quite innovative suggestions by some of the trade bodies, and these guys know what they're talking about. You know, they are a highly regulated business, and they're on it. They're seriously on it. But I don't see any evidence that any of the things they've suggested are being taken seriously by the government.
Melanie Hill's asking, talk about us being able to divert to different ports if there's a bottleneck at the preferred one. Is this an additional entry? Would additional entries be required there, or how would that work?
Well, you've got the complication with sort of diversion. Probably only really has an impact on safety and security. If you know your safety and security declaration, you're required to tell the system, you know, where the goods are entering, and if that changes, you've got to make an amendment to that that declaration, which
that should only be if it's to another member state, though, I think, isn't it? I don't think within the same country you have to actually do an amendment. Yeah,
well, they were saying that someone said the other day that they felt they had to make an amendment if it went from Dover, from Calais Dover, if it suddenly went at the last minute through the Channel Tunnel. But again, you know, these things are they're still in discussion to some extent.
Okay, what's the latest with regard to unaccompanied trucks? Who's required to lodge the GVMS? Or
the carrier, I think the ferry company.
Yeah, whether they do they can't start the goods movement reference. So who presumably the haulier that picks up the trailer has to give the goods movement the headline goods movement reference, the GMR. When it gets to the port, the ferry company is responsible. Sorry, the ferry the shipping line is responsible for lodging the safety and security declaration. This is this is partly why I wanted to try and have these conversations today, because we don't think we necessarily understand who's got the data. So, you know, we if you take Sequoia, you know, we want to give you functionality that reflects how you actually do business, how you do work, and we're kind of struggling to see where this fits in, how it can work, because unlike an air freight or a sea freight shipment, the data doesn't flow in the same way. You know, if you're talking about European haulage, you've got for 80% of goods are on foreign lorries. A fair percentage of them are owner drivers. You know, the concept of them lodging a safety and security declaration is ridiculous. So
it does seem a lot to ask the hauliers to do that, especially when they have very little control over any of the other transactions creating the information and documents.
Yeah, I mean, it's a result of the government not knowing and not caring how business actually flows, and it is tricky. I mean, we've done a couple of exercises with a couple of our customers that bring goods in by road from Europe, and really, to be honest, the most of the responsibility seems to fall on the receiving ETSF. It kind of makes sense that everything really is coordinated by the receiving location, but you know, we've safety and security. Some of you may know I have a big bee in my bonnet about that, and I can't see why we're not negotiating mutual recognition on safety and security, because we appear to be committed to ICS2, which is the next EU iteration of safety and security. We appear to still be signed up for that, and it makes no sense at all to do it. But you know, I don't know. Again, I don't know what will happen on that. It doesn't appear to be anything that's linked inextricably with the trade talks. I think that the Commission should be able to agree that without having to go back to all the member states to agree it. So it should be straightforward and simple. And if it were me, it would be the first thing I would be trying to do. And I've said that more times than I can remember, but you know, we'll have to see.
Okay, Andrew Vincent, you've got a question?
Yeah, hello all. We have flows between Scotland, Northern Ireland and the Republic. Now, as far as I can see at the moment, we're going to need to do an export declaration out of the UK for the cargo going to the Republic of Ireland. We're going to need to do a safety and security declaration for that same goods coming into Northern Ireland. And there's going to need to be a safety and security declaration to Irish Revenue and an actual declaration into the Irish Revenue. But what happens about, we actually have an ETSF as well in Northern Ireland. So could we potentially offload all this cargo into our ETSF and create an additional transit document or to Republic? It's difficult to know how to actually separate that out.
Yeah, I think so. Quite what the situation is, moving goods from Northern Ireland to the Republic that aren't in free circulation, I don't know. I've not seen anything from Irish Revenue on, because there's no north-south border, so it seems bizarre that you have to do a safety and security declaration out of Belfast for something that's going to Dublin.
It seems from what the Irish Revenue have released that they've got their customs Ro-Ro service pretty much down pat, and it's very similar to a lot of the Dutch or the French systems, amazingly. Not that I'm sarcastic in any way, shape or form. But certainly for me, this flow that we've got Scotland to Ireland via Northern Ireland with some potential Northern Irish freight on it, it's a massive headache.
Yeah, yeah.
You can, according to the Irish Revenue, do all the clearance in Northern Ireland and then just move the goods freely across to the Republic. Or for goods, if you want to start the movement in Scotland of the goods moving to the Republic, you can do those under transit and discharge those in the Republic and then do the import clearance there. But you can do it all in Northern Ireland if you want to.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of the best way to manage that flow, particularly when there may only be potentially 3 or 4 groupage shipments for Northern Ireland on that same trailer. And the rest of it's all for the Republic.
Mm.
Is the intention that ASM will have full ICS-NI connectivity built into your system, built into Sequoia?
Okay, I guess it's up to me. Yeah, that's what we're trying to establish at the moment. You know, what people need. So on the shopping list, if you like, there's CDS, safety and security, and well, transit, I guess, GVMS. So we're trying to work out, the priorities on these things. There are various different mechanisms that you can use currently that are available. CCS UK, for instance, has a mechanism through their advanced information system that can lodge the safety and security declarations for you. Yeah. So whether you would want that functionality in Sequoia, I don't know, and that's the purpose of today, really, to try and get people sort of thinking about what they need, what do they want Sequoia to deliver, and when, and that's what we're trying to work out.
Yeah, I'm from Schenker, so I know about the AAS bit.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's a question of if there's a decent third party application that you can use without it being a major trauma. Certainly in the initial time, that would be the way to do it. That's what we did with NCTS years ago. That there was a web service available from HMG. So we used that initially, and then put the functionality into Sequoia.
Can I just say because I always put a downer on it, it's not just what people want us to do, it's the resource that we've got available and what we can fit in by the end of the year.
Yeah.
We certainly can't do everything.
No, that's actually right. That's the key thing. That's why we're having these conversations, because we can't get it all done. There are things that we would like to do that we can't. There are things that we don't like. We won't like to have to do, but we have to. But all of this stuff comes. If we concentrate on one thing, we inevitably have to delay something else.
Thank you.
Mickey, your hand's up again. Have you got another question, Nikki Sayer? You're on mute at the moment, so. Okay, Ray, I think you've gotten Ray Bergen, another question.
Yeah, thanks. Peter or anyone else, do you perceive, I wouldn't use the word backlash, but a potential insistence from the 27 EU member states regarding translated documents, translated in the language of the driver, multiple drivers, transit countries?
Do you know what? Somebody the other day was commenting that they were from Dover, I think, and they were saying that their European hauliers had no idea what they were facing. They thought all of this would go away if we got a free trade deal. So I think the knowledge amongst European business as to what's needed is low, and who's gonna ask for what when it eventually sort of finds its own level. I have no idea whether there'll be a reasonable a sort of pragmatic approach, or whether people will start to enforce the letter of the law, or how they perceive it. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Okay. With unaccompanied trucks, does the TAD have to go with the goods? I assume that question is, Simon. Document has to be with it, so yeah.
Yes.
Is an accompanying document, definitely, yes.
Yeah, quite how it does that is the matter of some debate, whether you pin it to the trailer or not.
Okay, and then Colin's question: what about carnets? How will they work? Like, for example, a music tour, Liverpool, Belfast, Dublin. Where does the carnet get stamped?
the GVMS, I believe, is going to process the arrival of the carnet. Where it gets physically dealt with, I guess it's going to be one of these. If it's coming into Dover, for instance, I guess it's going to be one of these 3 locations the government are in the process of purchasing. At the moment, they haven't released the. Dover's quite an interesting location because you've got 2 choices with arriving RoRo, one of which is the temporary storage model, which I think we can ignore for the time being, and the other one of which is pre-lodgement. So whether you've got a customs entry or a carnet, it's pre-lodged, and it needs to be potentially produced to customs when it arrives. So if it's a normal entry that goes route 1 or 2, you'd have to produce it to HMRC somewhere, and a carnet has to be produced physically as well. So those locations, as they relate to Dover, have not been finalised yet, and the complication is that, as it stands at the moment, it's a binary choice from the ports that they have to be inventory linked, a system, or temporary storage, or they have to be pre-lodgement. You can't appear, at the moment it appears, you can't mix the 2. Now, in the event that a port decides to be pre-lodgement, the goods routinely will not be stopped, so that they will flow through without being stopped. The problem is Dover sort of has a system because it's got Stop 24, and Stop 24 is deemed to be the final boundary of Dover Port. But obviously you couldn't put however many million movements Dover has through Stop 24. So I don't think Dover want to be classified as a port with a system, but they currently have a system. So I think they're currently trying to unpick that. But where you physically produce the goods has not yet been defined. I guess if you're coming in through Dover, you can choose to put them through Stop 24 at the moment, but whether that system will still be in play at the end of the year is kind of, there's a bit of doubt about it, potentially. I mean, the answer actually is come to an ETSF. As I said earlier, if it were me, I wouldn't want to be mucking about with the actual RoRo ports and any facilities associated with them. So I would, choose to route everything through a temporary storage location which I controlled.
Okay. Well, other than Adrian Cray mentioning Travacom with a big exclamation mark, I haven't got any other questions. I think actually Adrian's left us now as well, but yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, you could draw those parallels.
Absolutely.
I guess it depends. I guess how much of a mess it has to be before they start doing some practical measures. I guess that's probably exhausted the questions and probably exhausted all of you. The main purpose of today, as I said, was try and get a feel for what you guys are looking for, whether what you want us to supply in the software. We are, I think it's fair to say, we are reluctant to get a CDS product out. We can, if we really have to, we could get some form of CDS capability by the end of the year, but we really don't want to. I don't think it will work very well in practice. But you know, we're sort of hoping that HMRC will see sense and come up with some working contingency. But in the meantime, if you guys want to have a reflect on how this impacts on your business and how you look to us to help you with that, and let us know, that would be extremely helpful. Do we have another hand? Ray.
Ray.
Yeah, quick question on EU multi-drops, Peter. So trucks going from the UK with multiple EU destination drops, is it easier to actually clear the goods at the main arrival EU port, or await and have them cleared through these offices of destination in, say, Germany, then Italy? What's your view on that?
I don't know what the cabotage regulations are going to be, which is a major factor, I think. If you're moving goods, so I think if you're moving goods, say from Dover, Calais, which are then destined for another European member state such as Germany, I think you'd have to use transit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I mean, I can't personally, I can't see any mechanism for a company, a groupage operator, to do anything other than go from, you know, one approved premises, an authorised consignor, to an authorised consignee. I just can't see it working any other way, because I think the processes at the railroad ports are going to be just too much. I think the admin to try and get you know, an entry into French customs, or you know, German customs or Dutch customs, whatever, you know, try and pre-enter, and also you've got to tell the UK ferry operator that you have already pre-lodged the declaration. The information flow, I don't think flows as quickly as the actual goods flow.
Yeah. Yeah, no, got that. Made notes on that. Thank you very much.
Okay, Wayne's just asking, imported personal effects that are cleared in the UK and then sent on to Northern Ireland. What declarations would be required there, Pete?
I don't know. Funnily enough, that's a question that was asked through me to the transition subgroup by the British Association of Removers, and it's one of the ones that have not had an answer yet.
Okay, and then Brendan's asking TSS again. The operation of TSS has been put out to commercial tender. This raised commercial data sensitivity issues. If TSS is not available to traders and TSS is not an option for the above reason, is there no option for sending goods to Northern Ireland? You mentioned CDS in some form being available from ASM. How confident are you of this? Bear in mind that there is not volume available online, and trade needs to learn a system that it has no access to, either system or information at the minute, which is
okay, well, from the expert point of view, I'm slightly more confident of our ability to put CDS out in some shape or form than I am for HMRC and the rest of it, because it just, you know, I keep coming back to, we said last year when we were talking about this in the CDS program board that we thought September 2021 would be a challenge, and you know, nothing's really changed since then. So I think we need seriously to start talking about contingency, and then we'll have a better idea. But I think I'd be reluctant, even if the CDS system was sort of more mature than it is currently, I'd be nervous about starting a brand new system, which is, you know, has completely different data sets, completely different to Chief. You know, it's not something that would fill me full of enthusiasm.
I think you're right. I think the learning from an entry clerk point of view how to do the declarations is going to be a bigger challenge than getting software out, because the tariff is still being rewritten and it's still shocking. So
yeah,
trying to decipher that is a big issue.
Yeah, the tariff is about 3 times as big as it was previously. And, you know, from any, I don't know if any of you guys have seen, there's been various bits of the tariff circulated around. I mean, it's gibberish. It really is.
Peter, in view of the government's keenness to taxes to hell and back to recover some of their money, how long do you think these reduced duty rates coming into the UK are going to last? Do you reckon they're going to stay for long, or?
Yeah, you know, I mean, there's big pressure from the meat trade, for instance, to reduce what may be WTO. So there's a lot of lobbying going on with regard to duty rates, which, you know, I'm not really party to. And someone asked the same question about VAT. How long do we think postponed VAT accounting is going to last? Do we think, you know, in 6 months' time they're going to change it? Well, yeah, possibly, but that's something that can't be done by HMRC on the nod. It has to be done within a budget by the Chancellor. I'm not sure about duty, actually, whether HMRC in their own right can change it, or whether it has to go to a higher power, actually. But one thing's for sure, we're faced with having to repay the various money the government's been shoveling out because of COVID. So no doubt they'll take every opportunity to claw it back.
Simon Southall's asking about a transition period to move from Chief to CDS. So, well, is this expected to be big bang? So I guess we're talking about the dual running. Have you any more of an update on that, Pete?
No, I mean, effectively, it's a big bang. You know,
well, it is for Northern Ireland. I mean, for everyone else, it's dual running, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. I mean, well, no, it's not even dual running. So CDS is scoped to handle 55 million declarations, which is a like-for-like replacement for Chief. The post-Brexit volumes of customs entries, I've heard anything from 250 million to 850 million. One thing's for sure, it's going to be more, even if it's double the current throughput, which is 55 million, another 55 million, even if it's that. So CDS cannot cope with that volume. So the actual mechanism for dealing with the rest of EU business into the UK is Chief. So you have the situation where CDS is mandated for Northern Ireland, but Chief is kind of mandated for the rest of Europe. So as an organisation, you'll be faced with actually running 2 systems, because if you wanted to use CDS for the rest of the European business, it couldn't handle it.
Okay. Andrew, have you got another question? Andrew Vincent?
Yeah. Just thinking about GVMS as a whole, I recall reading somewhere where GVMS was actually requiring CDS to actually work in order for it to work. So it basically sits on the back of the CDS platform. Is that correct?
It's supposed to sit on the back of CDS and Chief.
Right. So it needs CDS to be working in order for GVMS to work in effect.
No, I don't think so.
For Northern Ireland, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking for the Northern Irish controlled freight that they're saying that may potentially require a customs clearance. You're going to need to do it in CDS, and you're going to need to do a GVMS declaration as well.
Depending on the port, yeah.
So, in effect, we're going to need access to the GVMS portal, wherever it might happen to be, plus CDS in our chosen custom software. That's a headache.
Yeah.
Well, again, you know, we've been trying to work out where GVMS fits, because you've got to link the customs status, if you like, with the actual whereabouts of the goods.
Yes.
Now, we can't really work out whether it's something we should put in Sequoia or whether it's something that CCS UK should do, because bear in mind, you've got to access GVMS through the government gateway with your digital ID, which is not something that is easy to manage and maintain. So the access, the CSPs have asked for privileged access to GVMS so that you could actually connect to it via your CSP connection, which would be more reliable and more resilient.
Yeah.
Now that's still in the throes of being decided, but does that mean we have to put the GVMS functionality into Sequoia, or should we just make sure it's available through the CSPs? It's, you know, it's difficult. It needs an understanding. Probably it needs more of an understanding of how you guys actually move the freight when you've got the data, who's got it, whether it's you or you know, your customer or the consignee or whoever. You've got to bring all this information together from different parties. And now, where does it make sense to do that? Is it within Sequoia? Is it within your, if you've got a management system, a vehicle management system in-house, is it within that? This is what we need to try and find out, because it's far from clear.
Yeah, logically speaking, from my point of view, we're going to be doing an import declaration in, yeah, for instance, Sequoia. And so therefore, if we're doing the import declaration into Northern Ireland in Sequoia, it would make more sense for me for that software, for that information to be able to transfer through Sequoia into GVMS. But if they're saying that's a government gateway, then you can't necessarily do that.
You've then got the issue of if you presumably are just the forwarder, not the importer. The importer might choose to do the declaration themselves. They might use the trader support service to do the declaration. It's their prerogative and their legal responsibility to do the import declaration. So you don't, I guess, actually control that, although you can be quite persuasive. And it might be goods you're moving or goods you're not moving. It might be goods under transit that you've raised or somebody else has raised. There's so many different scenarios that it's difficult to, and you've got now talking about a custom system which is dealing with the beginning and the end, which we've never had before. It's always been an import and an export, and it brings so many different conflicting scenarios together. That I don't know, madness.
Yeah, they certainly haven't made it clear for anybody, have they?
No.
Yeah.
They've had no idea. The trouble is they've had no idea of how business works. And they've come up with these things that seem a good idea. Yeah, well, I can understand that. They want to control various things, but it just isn't practical in a lot of cases. But
yeah, and not just that as well. You've got the whole safety and security thing as well. I mean, potentially you could have a situation where we're moving goods purely from GB to NI, but we're having to do a declaration for security purposes, which we've never had to do before.
Yeah.
And then you've got the whole situation, you know, a trailer that's going via Northern Ireland to the Republic, you're going to have to do safety and security in, from what I can work out, ICSNI, plus GVMS, plus the declaration in Ireland.
Yeah.
And none of which are interconnected with each other. So you're going into 3 or 4 different systems all to do one movement.
Yeah. Now, if you've got, one truck with one consignment, that's not a major problem. But I mean, I'm hearing people saying they have trailers with 20,000 line items on. That becomes a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I think I'm moving jobs. Thank you, gentlemen.
God.
And ladies.
It takes me back to when I think SAD-H came in and various people said, "Oh, I'm glad I won't be around when that happens. I'll have retired by then." I mean, that just pales into insignificance with what we're facing now. But,
we're all still here.
Yeah, we somehow seem to just power through it. Do we have any others? Okay, well, I hope you found today interesting, if that's the word. As I said at the beginning, we're still in the more questions than answers space, but I hope it's given you a bit more of a feel for what we're facing. And as I say, if you can give some thought to how we can help you and what sort of functionality you're looking to introduce and when, that would be very useful. So, unless there's anything else, thanks for your time, and no doubt we'll have a reprise of this in 4 to 6 weeks probably, where things may be slightly clearer.
Oh, we've got a few more questions, Pete. Matthew Donnan, you've got a question from myself.
Hello. I'm just wondering. We had a couple more people who were hoping to sit in on this. Chris from our Runcorn office was going to be one of them, but he got because of the bank holiday, he got snowed under. Can we, if this is being recorded, can we get a copy of the video to share with him, or is that okay? Or
yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay.
I'll send you a link to it, Matthew, because it'll probably be too big to distribute to everybody. So I can send the link to that to everyone, and I'll send a copy of the Irish Revenue presentation. I think Ethan may have sent that out this morning as well, but I'll send that anyway.
Thank you very much.
Okay, no problem. Brendan, you've got a question as well?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Peter, question is really relating to lead times for CDS. You mentioned there may be some form of CDS solution, and going back slightly to what I put in my typed question, we have no current access to volume 3 of CDS online, and we have no access physically, no hands on a keyboard to any sort of a system for CDS. So apart from general information that we may see and read and stuff we may have looked at on the old volume 3, we don't really have an insight sufficiently to train anyone. So if you do think you're going to have a CDS workable solution for Northern Ireland, what's the lead time on that? How long will we have?
Probably not long enough, Simon.
Have you got a test version of Sequoia as well as a live version?
Sorry, is that a question? If it's a question to me, no, I have nothing for CDS.
Okay. We can.
No, sorry, Simon, your question wasn't about for CDS. It was just if you have a live version of Sequoia, not the CDS version.
Yeah.
Sequoia today.
You've got Sequoia in a live environment. Have you got a test server as well?
Not as far as I know. I'm only aware that a small number of traders could apply to get a test session, but we've never used it on Sequoia.
Okay.
Right. So what we're talking about there is actually, Brendan, a version of Sequoia in your own test environment that nothing to do with CDS. But do you have Sequoia in a test environment in your office? No. Okay, because some people have two versions of Sequoia, one in test and one in live. So I think, Simon, it's just a live version of Sequoia there.
Okay, so what we can look at is putting something together. I was thinking of this previously, is either, I mean, we've got some demo server access online to Sequoia that maybe we could give you a look at, or we could discuss with you setting up a test version in your own environment that you could have a look at the CDS declarations and stuff. I'm sure we can sort something out.
That would be marvelous. Yes, thanks. Because I mean, this is a big problem for trade. As has already been mentioned, CDS is radically different. In my 30+ years in the industry, there hasn't been anything quite as substantial in terms of a change. And even though I think I've got my head around most of it conceptually, until you actually try things out, you don't really truly understand it.
Sure. Well, let's we'll put something together. I'll have a discussion after this internally, and we'll put something together. Maybe some advice and some suggestions that we can circulate as to how we can make it visible.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
I think it would be worth, Simon, if you could just summarise what our plans were before all this Northern Ireland stuff raised its ugly head. What our plans for CDS as far as our user base are concerned were September next year. I guess it's worth summarising that before we go today.
I could do that. Yeah.
Please.
So the plan was we breathed a huge sigh of relief when customs agreed that it wasn't going to be ready by the end of this year. We were still recognizing it would be a challenge to get everything we want to do ready for September next year. So that's not just putting up a declaration form, letting you key it in and sending it off. It's the validation, it's some smart stuff to help you fill it in, especially around the tariff and commodity and measure waivers and things like that. So there's a lot of stuff we still had to do, but we were comfortable that we could get most of it done by September. So now they've dropped in, we need to get it into production and used in anger by 1st of January. They've also said we can, if we like, hook up to GVMS and interface with that. They've also changed the communication method for Northern Ireland transit declarations. We've got to do that by January. They're also changing the messaging syntax for all of NCTS, which has got to be done in the first half of next year. They're also, or we are also having to look at potentially something for ICS, for GB, and for the Northern Ireland ICS systems, which are separate systems, by January or July next year. So we've gone from everybody saying everybody's got too much work to do, CDS is not going to be ready, to now government saying CDS has got to be ready. Oh, and by the way, you've got 3 times as much work to do to get there. So we're in a huge dilemma. We're working as hard as we can, but we have to prioritize between different parts of the system and what we have to do over what we might have to do, if you see what I mean. So, apart from that, everything's good.
Volume 3 of the tariff, by the way, is held up because gov.uk won't accept abbreviations. So the tariff has been written, and it's been handwritten by HMRC. They've given it to gov.uk, and gov.uk have said, "Oh, we can't use that." Now they're in discussions about, I mean, when you say abbreviations, it's data element, for instance, you know, D.E. They're now having discussions that, well, if they take the dots out between the D and the E, is that acceptable to them? I've had an estimate that that will take 2 months. I mean, it just gets into the realms of farce. But as you say, there's no tariff available, so even
we have got paper copies in Word format. It's not very pleasant to look at, but it's
horrible.
Yeah, but anybody who wants those, I guess, could have those. I don't think they're secret.
No, they're not. No, that's true.
So we could forward that. It's not nice to look at, but
that would be good. I think, you know, I've looked at it previously, so to have something to access now rather than just bits and pieces of it would be fantastic.
Yeah, just so everybody knows, we have done a lot of work on CDS. It's not something we're just thinking of starting and putting into Sequoia, and the current version of Sequoia does have access to CDS, so you can actually do a declaration, send it to the test system, and get the response back for very limited within very limited parameters, which is mainly the test system restrictions. But you can, as Simon and Sharon said earlier, you know, we can set up some form of access for you to have a play with it, and you can see the full horror of what you've got to come.
Thank you.
So are we finished?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as I say, I hope you found this useful. We'll schedule another one in the probably I would think 4 weeks or so, or if anything dramatic happens in the meantime that changes things significantly, we'll arrange another one, and hopefully you've got a number of things to mull over. So we shall say thanks very much, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank
thanks
you.
everyone. I'll send the video links and the files to you all. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Peter.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.